Hi, everybody. Joe Gehring from Anderson Trucking.
And I'm Robbie Schaefer.
Hey, guys, welcome to ATS Live. So we are going on, I think this is our 6th week in a row of our 11 o'clock Ask Us Anything. So to always start things out, you know what I really am amazed by is I go back and I watch these things after the fact, and we know that not all of the drivers that are looking at ATS are able to actually join the 11 o'clock Ask Us Anything. But the reality is that the amount of shares and comments that happen after the event is done is through the roof. So I just, on the front of this, I really just want to ask everybody if you could just do me one favor. If you've watched this after the fact and you're not a live driver, whether you're an active ATS driver that's watching or you're a prospect driver who's checking us out to see if we might be an organization you're interested in, send us messages after the fact. We really want to have questions coming from you. And when we say ask us anything, that could range from everything under the sun. So when we don't have an agenda in front of us, you notice that we try to come into these things very unscripted. Our entire goal is to be able to be responsive to the questions that are coming our way. So hi, Samantha. Thanks for saying hello so quick. So very quickly, we are rolling out a lot of pay changes. So Robbie, you and John did this last week, and I think you did a great job explaining it to everybody. But I think we're going to take a little bit of time today to just kind of recap on really what hit the streets this week with our company driver pay changes. And then we'll also touch on what that means for our contractors here recently.
Yeah, no, I agree. We should spend some time on that. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with John last week. And so when I was offered the opportunity to come back and do it again, I didn't even think twice. Just let me in. Yeah. So the rollout of the new pay programs last week, that we're going to talk about it again because we're an industry leader, and we can't stress that enough. I know you got some averages in there in front of you, Joe.
Well, I do. So listen, you guys, we've been tracking our drivers' earnings over the last 12 plus weeks. And pretty much every month we are getting about a 10-cent rate increase coming to our drivers. So what does that really mean? So you hear a lot of drivers saying, hey, our average pay for our drivers is a number. I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of that. I'll tell you why. Because every one of you drivers, you work a little bit differently. There are trade-offs. Some of you run a little bit harder and stay a little bit longer. And some of you, that home time is extremely important to you, and I respect both. But that creates a range. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about when we talk about the ranges. So Robbie, right now, I think last week, you were talking about what the ranges were for flatbed. So why don't you tell everybody what that range is today for our flatbed company and van drivers?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time last week talking about, well, the new upside pay going up to 28%, getting us to a 75-cent a mile average for company drivers. And that average for our company drivers right now is somewhere between $1,500 and $1,900 a week.
Correct.
That's an average range for company drivers. And just goes to show, I mean, ATS is the leader when you start talking about numbers and so many other things, but that's what we're talking about now is the numbers.
Well, and we've gotten the rating from the National Transportation Institute for years now on being a top pay carrier. Everybody claims to have that status, but I will tell you that we like to have an independent group come in towards not just us telling you this, to where they come in, they check our W-2s, our I-9s, and they actually check it against what our competition is doing. And so we've always been proud of being a top 10 top paid carrier. But today, these numbers that we're talking about, our drivers, if they're coming and you want to go to work, the money is absolutely second to none right now. So that range that Robbie just talked about for our company drivers, that $1,500 point, and we know that $1,500 is kind of that point most drivers are saying they've got to be at. That's in our 70 percentile. So what that basically means is that 70% of our drivers are making at least that. But then that number all the way up to 19, that's our top 20. So we have a top 10 above that. But we just felt that this is a good range for you to get an idea to where if you're coming to work and you're accepting the freight and you're making yourself available, hands down, that's the money's there right now. And I love the question. So a lot of hellos from everybody. I appreciate that. Lewis, I'll take home 125K a year as a base to operate that 19 axle you have. Well, guess what? You probably will, probably better. Right now, our company drivers, the this range that we just talked about, that $1,500 to $1,900 on a weekly settlement basis, that equates to about $72,500 on the low end, up to $93,000 in annual earnings. And this is for a brand new flatbedder coming on board, somebody who maybe has been pulling vans, has been pulling tankers, and is brand new to open deck hauling. But on the van side, the dollars are neck and neck with what our flatbed drivers are doing. What's really cool though is let's spend a couple of minutes talking about lease. So our contractors that come on board and they do a lease with ATS, listen, we still believe that we have the only one-year program that's out there for our flatbedders. We have an option of a 1 and a 2 year lease program. Robbie, the two biggest selling points on our lease program compared to everybody else is what?
Well, they're just short term and no money down. You touched on it a little bit, Joe. You touched on the career path, and that's something we talked about last week too. But so the guy who's been doing dry van, been doing tanker, been doing reefer, he can come in here and he can eventually get to where Lewis is talking about doing 19 axle setups with no experience coming in. So back to the lease though, Joe. Yeah, just the fact that it's a 1 year lease and the earnings that we have right now, that's the biggest pull to the lease right now.
Well, and so I'm going to elaborate a little bit. So I was around when we started that program now over 20 years ago. The reason we do this 1 year lease is very simple. First off, there's really no skin in the game for a new contractor. You can come in and have an opportunity of becoming an independent contractor. No credit check, no money down. Really, the risk is on us. But we do this program because how many of those drivers that come into our 1 year lease program that end up then doing a longer term lease to actually own that truck? But it gives us, I call it a courtship. It gives us a little bit of an idea for us to get to know you a little bit better, you to get to know us a little bit better. And then if you decide we're the real deal, you've got multiple opportunities for other leases that we offer, but we do not offer them to brand new drivers. These are programs like our TAP program.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Tell people what TAP is.
TAP it stands for Top Anderson Performers, and basically what that is you've completed the 1 year lease, you've collected your $4,000 completion bonus, and now you want to get into something a little longer term. You got the opportunity to do that with ATS. We own both a dealership and a leasing company, and so there's multiple options to get into that program. I want to call out a couple things here. David mentioned how long does it take to get to heavy haul? That's a great question. And I touched on it a little bit about the career path. It's very clearly spelled out. There's four classifications, and really all we have to do is meet a minimum of 5 different oversized qualifying loads in each class, demonstrate a comfort level, and you're able to move up. So if you want to put a time frame on it, average is going to be 2 to 3 years. We have seen people do it quicker, be a little more aggressive. The freight falls just right. And we have seen people take a little longer. Maybe the comfort level is not there. It takes a little more getting used to the bigger freight. Let's be honest, not everybody can just hop into a 15 wide load and go down the road and know what to do. So that's a great question, David. Thomas, hopefully you're here for many more years. Good to have you on for 2 years.
Right on.
I saw some other questions up above that I think we missed. Nope, but I do want to call out, hi, Christopher.
Yeah, we got a lot of highs out there.
Yeah.
Hey, and I want to take the time for our active Anderson drivers, you guys and gals, I got to tell you right now, there's nothing better on these ATS lives that we do than to have you participate. I can't thank you enough because, listen, a recruiter is a used car salesman. We all know that, and you guys have all been lied to a lot about what's what. There's nothing better to back up what we're talking about than to have our drivers. So I do appreciate you guys taking the time to comment as far as what your earnings are, and really that these things that we're talking about right now are the real deal. There's no fine print. I will say one piece of fine print. You can earn this money if you're ready to go to work. If you think you're going to make this money sitting at home, that's not our package. But if you're going to be out on the road and working as what you're planning, I don't believe that there's anybody that's probably beating what we're doing right now. So we're excited about the freight that's coming up. Let's all just think about this a minute. This COVID stuff that's been happening. Anderson Trucking Service, our biggest customer base is going to be new machineries, your construction, your agriculture, your power generation. So many of the manufacturing has been shut down. The reason we're seeing this big surge right now is because a lot of that manufacturing is back up and running again. So we truly believe that May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, that through the remainder of the year, it's going to remain extremely strong, just similar to what we saw about 3 years ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I talked about it being an exciting time to be in the industry last week. It's an exciting time to be with ATS when you think about the coming out of the COVID, coming into the good times of the year, and what our averages have been. You come into a 1-year lease, kind of figure out if ATS is who we say we are. You get to do that risk-free, and during that time frame, our average earnings right now are somewhere between $2,100 and $2,900 a week after expenses.
Yep. You know, we didn't talk about that earlier, so we're talking about that range for our company drivers. So for our company drivers, we're saying again that 70 percentile is in that plus $1,500 range. That 20 percentile is in that, you know, $1,850 to $1,900 if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But for our contractors, so I'll give it a little bit of a different spread. I think right now it's a little over 2,000 on the low end and up to about 2,800, 2,850 for our contractors. And so, folks, this is after fixed expenses. So, like I said, as a lease operator, there's risk and reward. You own that truck. You're leasing it. You're your own boss. You make your own decisions. You're responsible for the fuel. You're responsible for the maintenance of that truck. On the company side, you're able to be a little bit more conservative. But we've worked hard to close that gap because you guys have heard me say this many times. A company driver is equally as important to Anderson Trucking as a contractor. It's just some people would rather be an employee. Some people prefer to run their own business, and we try to make sure we can meet both of those drivers' needs in an exceptional way. So, and I just continue to see these comments. Hey, Dave, Mr. Jones. So when I was telling you that things have been a little bit quieter on the OD side, a lot of that has been, again, because I was talking about with the manufacturing being shut down. Those doors are starting to open up. So I'm glad you're getting ready to come up and renewing your lease in about a month or so. You should be entering at the beginning of a great period of time to where you'll probably be able to be tasting more and more of those over-dimensional loads to move you up in classes from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. Robbie, did you talk at all about last week about the kind of the bonuses that we're paying out for the changes in class?
Yeah, so we briefly touched on it. So we talk about these 4 classifications to be moving up. And David, what you mentioned there, that goes back to what I was saying about the freight availability part. And Joe touched on it real well about now we're coming in where there should be more availability. But each time you do step up a class, there's going to be a one-time payout. So I think Chad Schultz mentioned it last week. He needed a bonus check. And it was perfect timing because that's what we were talking about is each time you step up, so you've done those 5 different oversized loads, you've met whatever the requirements are to move up to the next class, there's going to be a one-time payout.
Well, and folks, I always worry about when these things go, that things get lost. 2 big messages that I want to make sure we talk about today. So number 1, we've been working our tails off to explain upside pay for our company drivers. So we've done a lot of work. So if you have the time to go to our Drive 4 ATS website, so it's Drive the number 4 ATS, we've actually got screenshots of what our company drivers see when they're in the cab of their truck and they're getting a load offering. It's going to tell them, so for upside, that program is we pay you both CPM or we pay you percentage. And Rob, you want to explain a little bit more about what they actually see that comes across their Qualcomm?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you'll see come across the Qualcomm is if this load is going 600 miles and it pays X amount, it pays $800 for let's say cents per mile. Now you get to the other side and the percentage, which is 28%, shows that it's going to pay $1,200. Your paycheck will automatically get the $1,200. So a driver never has to figure out, do I pick this? Do I pick that? It is automatically. So at the end of the week, you might get one load that pays the cents per mile, and then you might get one load that pays the percentage. And when you average this out, we have been at 75 cents a mile is what the average is.
75% or greater. And again, very critical. Almost every trucking company, you have to pick, I'm being paid cents per mile, or you have to pick that I'm being paid percentage. you don't get to pick both. We're trying to make it to where every load, every time, whatever is going to pay the truck the most is what you're going to automatically be paid. And so that's what's just completely unique. We believe it's one of the biggest differentiations that are going on out there right now. So the 75 cents is a big deal. And then you guys, I call this a transition guarantee. You don't ever hear me talking about sign-on bonuses. We have them, but I don't want drivers coming on board for a sign-on. I want to have that help them transition from their last career to their career with us. But this pay guarantee that we're offering our company drivers, you guys listen. When our flatbed division is saying every 4 weeks, if you have not made at least $5,800, or our van division is saying that you're not going to make at least $5,200, for those first couple of months you're with us, that's to make sure that the pains that any new driver goes through, getting to know your fleet manager, how our freight works. The entire purpose of that is to get you up on your feet. So then these ranges that we talked about earlier, you're right in the hunt for that, and you're not looking at minimums anymore. You're looking at what is the potential that I can make here based on how hard I want to work.
Yeah, you touched on being helping with the transition. That's the biggest part when I talk to drivers is that this minimum guarantee includes the week of orientation. So as a van driver, basically for having completed orientation, gotten in your truck and getting ready to run, you will have made $1,300 for all intents and purposes.
Yep. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Good point. And you guys, again, when there's not a lot of questions coming, we're just trying to talk about what we hear the majority of. And again, you might be watching this at 10 o'clock tonight. We want to take advantage of very direct questions. I was joking earlier because we're kind of wearing black and white. We like to talk black and white. The reality, we want to lay it out. I think we're one of the few companies that actually spells out the program. There isn't a fine print. I'm hearing a lot of buzzwords about a lot of carriers that are doing kind of a surge pay and things like that. All that means is, hey, we're going to up your pay now, but we can pull it back anytime we want. We prefer not to play those kind of games, to be honest with you. So anyway, so getting back into this, the more questions that you can bring our way, and again, you don't need to be on the live session. We're monitoring these things after the ATS lives are done, and so we'd love to have 10 or 15 questions right out of the gate that we can answer for the next group of drivers. And again, remember, we do this religiously every Thursday at 11 o'clock, and I think we've got an upcoming evening one. I think it's on May 19th. I'm going off memory, but we'll have some postings out there. We do those at 7 p.m. to be able to hit more of the drivers that are available during that time.
Yep, and Joe, I want to go back to that upside pay, because there's a couple of things that I present. When we look at the percentage, 28%, that's a high number. You've got companies out there paying 25, 26, 27%, and that's wonderful. The big thing about upside pay is that when freight values take a dive and drivers that are at other companies making let's say they're making 28%, but the freight values go way down, they have no protection. They could end up in a spot where they're running loads for 26 cents a mile, 25 cents a mile, and ATS has said, we're going to make sure you never make less than, and that's 50 or 55 cents a mile depending on division.
Yep. And so I'm going to jump real quick. So, hey, Dave, I appreciate the question. So we get a lot of questions about APUs. So all of our company trucks have got APUs, and then our 1 and 2 year leases don't. We can't get around that one just yet, and I'll tell you why. So the value and cost of an APU, you can't depreciate it over 1 or 2 years. And so APUs are available in the longer term leases. I don't think it needs to be 4 years. I think you have to be in at least a 3 year lease to make that happen. And a lot of that comes down to, are you going to be putting down payment money into it? So we'd love to be able to equip the trucks with the APUs, but there's just some folks that want it, some that don't. And we can't properly depreciate it for a contractor in a 1 or 2 year time period. So for those of you that an APU is extremely important, talk to us so we can talk through some of the financing options available to us. We got plenty of drivers. We've had more drivers in the last 2 years that came initially to do a 1 year lease and ended up saying, hey, no, I want to get into a longer term lease so I can get a few more of the specific bells and whistles on the front end. So what is that? Is that 5? So Colleen, I'm not sure what you're saying here. It says my hubby's anniversary is 5/23, 9 beautiful years. Now I got it. The 23rd of May. See the gray hair?
The light came on.
Gets my brain a little bit tight sometimes, Colleen. So So you guys, we're, we don't put a time limit on these whatsoever. I think the biggest thing we really wanted to just chat about today was the realities of these new pay increases that we've got for our company drivers. Frankly, for our lease drivers that are being paid percentage folks, I've had 3 or 4 phone calls this week of drivers just saying, what's going on? The paychecks are phenomenal. Now, of course, you can kind of get into that mode of saying, is this going to go away? Let's take advantage of it while we can. I don't know when the market is going to change, but for right now, within the foreseeable future, we believe it's not only going to stay, we believe it's going to continue to get better.
Yeah, there's no end in sight, and ATS really takes advantage of that, and you can see that they're trying to put more money in the driver's pocket. We don't want drivers to come here for a year or 2, 6 months. We take a lot of pride in the fact that we have a lot of very long tenured drivers, and that really is because of the upper management of ATS. They continue to grow and be a leader.
So you guys, I'm always watching how many people are watching us. You got to give us more questions, because me and Robbie can talk to each other and at the computer, at the screen all day long, but we really want to take advantage of this time to be focusing on you folks. So
that's what we do. Joe alluded to used car salesmen. So we can talk. But when he said that, my first thought was, I touched on it last week a little bit, was the fact that everybody in this department feels like we're consultants. And no matter what that is, if you call in and you're not sure if you want van, flatbed, heavy haul, company, lease, owner operator, we'll take the time to consult with you. You figure out what your needs are, what you're really looking for, and what would be the best long-term fit for you. Sometimes the best long-term fit is starting out as a company driver with the knowledge that down the road you want to buy a truck or you want to get into a lease program. Sometimes it's just to come in and get into a lease program immediately, whether that be that short-term lease, or Joe touched on it. Sometimes a driver comes in and it makes more sense for them to get into a long-term lease. So we're going to be able to talk through that stuff with you and help you make the best decision for you and your family long-term.
And honestly, it's not like one package fits all. Again, the 1-year lease, for somebody new, we do it so short-term because there are drivers that have never leased before that they do it. They say, I didn't like the headaches. I want to go back to, if the truck breaks down, it's not my problem. But at the end of the day, the 1-year lease is to allow that new driver that's not contracted before to get a flavor of it without going upside down, with having to come up with $8,000 or $10,000 and basically just bought yourself a house. Paul, I see your question. Freight lanes. Listen, we're an over-the-road national carrier, so we run all 48. We go up into up into Canada. We go up to Alaska. We interchange a lot down on the borders of Mexico. But our strongest freight lanes, as far as home time, basically, if you draw a straight line from Minnesota down to Texas and go east, except in the southern points of Florida, maybe some of the northern points of Michigan, freight is extremely solid there. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to get out to Washington or Arizona or California or out to the West Coast. It's just our freight base is not quite as strong in that area. And as far as New York City, there's not a driver that joins Anderson Trucking that doesn't say they do not want to go in the boroughs unless you live in Jamaica or the Bronx or somewhere in New York. So we don't force dispatch. The majority of drivers, you're going to go to New York, but you're not going to be being forced to go into the boroughs. And if you do, you actually get paid an arbitration fee for doing that.
Yep. David asked, who do you need to or can sit down with when you get to St. Cloud? Typically, what we recommend is start with your driver manager. If you got some questions, absolutely call your recruiter anytime. Each one of us recruiters have been here long enough where we don't always have the answers, but we've been here long enough to know who to get you to get you the right answer.
Hey, and Mr. Crowder, love it when you contractors come on board. So when we're getting gross revenue increases of over 10 cents a mile month over month, that's your pay increase, my friend. And you know that I opened my door. Folks, I always pull this out there, but I am the one guy that I don't care about getting an email or a phone call personally. I'm that company guy. I've been here over 30 years. But at the end of the day, I've talked to more contractors, and I know you guys are wondering about the changes between the percentage. Right now, there's not any talks about that except for tenure, of course. But at the end of the day, our contractors are killing it, Mike, and I would hope that you agree with that. As far as the load offerings and what the gross pay is that are on these loads that you're accepting right now. So, and David, listen, the used car thing, we're used to it. We know what we sound like initially, and we appreciate the drivers that take the time to actually build a relationship with us, because the first thing we're going to do is point them in the direction of our drivers that are active with us. We're that one that has to cover all the details, but there's nothing I get more excited about than to say, here's 10 drivers' name and phone numbers that said that you could reach out and talk to them before you make your decision. And that's again why I thank all of our active drivers that are listening right now, because a driver talking to a driver, you guys are the ones out there doing the job, making the sacrifices, and earning the paychecks or dealing with the fleet managers. No better credibility than what you've got to tell these pros that are looking to come our way.
Yeah, I always encourage, anytime I'm talking to a driver that's considering ATS, is if it's not an immediate thing and they need to do something immediately and they're doing research, I always encourage them, hey, next time you're at a truck stop, search out the ATS truck. Now that you're talking to me, guess what? You're going to start to see them. And talk to those drivers, because I love it when our drivers are able to talk to drivers that are considering coming to ATS. Oh, we're getting a lot of comments now.
No, this is good, but
Yep.
I need my comment gal to slow down a little bit.
Yeah,
So I can read
sorry,
these.
I had to go to
I'm
the
way
bottom.
back.
So you keep talking, but Dominic, I'll come to you. But the reality is, we'll be calling you. Why don't we just count on that? We will be reaching out to you, and we'll see if the time now is the right time. So I'm excited to hear. Love it when we've got about half of our class coming in, our actual rehires coming back, and our drivers that left for whatever reason, and those coming back, the numbers are through the roof. And frankly, that and our drivers that are being referred in are probably the two biggest things right now that are keeping our trucks full with the drivers that we're really looking forward to. So
I loved William's comment up there. Back up a little bit. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting on? Just make the call.
we'll call you.
Yeah.
We'll reach out to you if not. And again, my email address, I'd love to get it out there. It's the easiest within Anderson Trucking. It's Joe, Joe, at ATSinc.com. You send me a message, I guarantee you that you'll get a response. See any other ones there? I'm looking at the one about Canada.
You go into Canada, yes, absolutely we do. It's not a requirement, and there's not a huge separation between the drivers that are able to go into Canada compared to the ones that are not. But there is an opportunity for sure.
Well, and I'm going to spell it out a little bit more. So we know that some drivers can't go to Canada, which is cool. If you're willing to get your passport and you're willing to go to Canada, I am going to tell you though that the earning potential is probably about another 10 to 15%. We actually own a carrier that's up in Canada that we interchange with and work with. So we do a lot of Canadian business, especially on the flatbed side. On the van side, you're probably not going to get many load offers going to Canada. But on the flatbed side, again, I told you we've got offices up in Canada, and we run up to Alaska, so we have to clearly run through Canada. So if you're willing to, it's probably worth your time, but you won't be forced to. All right, I hate the silence, Robbie.
Yep.
You see anything up there? Or?
Yep, I'm showing you.
Yep. Sorry I'm late. Had to get something to eat. Thanks for joining us, no matter when it is, Michael. And like Joe talked about earlier, it doesn't matter if you're tuning in right at the last second here as we're wrapping up, and you want to go back and watch it right afterwards, watch it later. And if questions pop up from something we're saying or some comments that you're seeing, put them in there. It doesn't matter if it's you're sitting there, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're bored, you're maybe getting ready for a pre-trip, whatever the case is. If you comment at 2 o'clock in the morning, I pretty much guarantee I'm not going to respond at 2 o'clock in the morning, but we'll get to it real quick, and you will get a response.
So, and as we start to wrap up here a little bit, by the way, Mike, I don't get it. Something went over my head. Do you understand what Mike is asking?
I don't.
So, Mike, you said happy enough that I went from 76 to a 41. If you've got time to respond, I'm really interested, or just call me. I just don't know if I'm following that. But so you guys, kind of in a recap, we're always going to be talking about the things. Listen, pay. Nobody goes to work without getting a paycheck and to take care of the family. So we for us, that's kind of a no-brainer. You're not going to go to work for a company to earn less. So we do think that we set the bar on what our drivers are taking home. We got to be able to talk about home time. We got to be able to talk about pet policies. We've got to be able to talk about APUs, the couple of the questions that came up. We've got to be able to talk about whatever is important. We've got a saying here, everything matters. it's not just 2 or 3 things. It's depending upon what driver you're talking to. There might be something that most people think is the most ridiculous issue that is the number one most important thing. So when we say ask us anything, if you're not asking, we can't answer, but we will never ever avoid a single question that comes up during these live sessions.
That's a good point, Joe, because we spend a lot of time talking on the big hot topics. The pay, the equipment, the home time, and we're leaders in all those things. But there's a lot of other things that go into this industry. Family, Joe touched on it, pets, rider, travel to and from orientation. What's it going to cost me? How much am I going to have in the bank to come to orientation?
What have we done to protect you from COVID?
Yeah.
I mean, let's throw that out there.
Those are all big topics that we don't spend a lot of time on these talking about. But if you're on here, if you got a comment about those things, we will spend time. And number one, if you put a comment on here, what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to answer that question later. But it's also going to give us things that, hey, drivers are interested in this next week, because
right.
we do this every week at 11 o'clock.
And by the way, Mike, I love you, buddy. That light should have came on. So obviously you went from a leased truck number to a true owner operated truck number. And that goes to show after 31 years at Anderson Trucking, I don't ever refer to a truck number. So thanks for that. I feel a little bit better now.
Yeah.
So you guys, one last thing I'd like to talk about too, and I love it when our driver's on. We are that company that when you come on board, the biggest comment I get after our orientation and a new driver comes is when you come in to sign in at Anderson Trucking, you walk in, you get a badge, a cute little one just like what I've got right here. And as soon as you got signed in, you can walk to any department. You can walk to safety. You can walk to operations, to your fleet manager. You can walk to Raleigh Anderson's office. You can walk to my office. It doesn't matter. It's a completely open door policy, and we don't have the little glass panels in between us. There's no better way for us to respect our drivers than to say, listen, you guys are that important. You come to corporate, we'll buy you lunch every time you come to town. For some of you guys, you can't come back 2 or 3 times on the same day, but you get a lunch. So.
Yeah, no, and we always love it, as a recruiting department. There's not a lot of us. We're not like a lot of companies our size where the recruiting office is huge. It's a small number, so when a driver does stop in, chances are your recruiter will know you, but somebody else will too. Not a couple of the other recruiters, because we've all been here a long time. And then Joe will probably recognize your voice and pop his head out too.
Well, and I got to say one thing, Dominic, I'm glad you're making comments. I see the tear coming back about losing your 1A. For anybody who's new, that's a pretty big deal, because Dominic went from a class 4 to a class 3 to a class 2 to a class 1 to a class 1A. So Dominic, we've actually just made some changes to our rehire program, and so you may want to give us a call, because we are grandfathering in some of the drivers that have left. And if it's something that it wasn't something negative or it wasn't safety related, we're actually doing some grandfathering in, letting you hold the percentage that you were at, letting you hold your class level. Might need to go back and do some testing, but I want to let you know that's a pretty big change that we just did for our rehires coming back to ATS.
That's why questions are important. That's a huge deal that we've been talking about a lot. And so, yeah, thanks for the question. That put it out there. If you're a rehire and you're concerned about what Dominic is there about not getting back to where you were when you left, whether that be your level, your pay, whatever it is, call us, because we've had some major changes. And Michael, John is there.
Hey, no, you know what I want to go to say.
But
Michael, John is always to lunch. It doesn't matter if it's 6 o'clock in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. So,
I was being nice, John.
John, I love you too, buddy.
Guys,
So,
what number can we call?
so if you guys want to call in, the main phone number is 1-800-778-8240 is the main switchboard line. Just hit 0 if it's ringing. We got plenty of recruiters that are available, and we got backup galore. So, and again, the email us, send us a text through this platform, whatever works for you guys. Thanks, Michael. I needed that. All right, so one of the last ones I got here is from BJ. I left because I was starving out of the truck after I fixed a customer service mistake. So listen, you guys, when I say ask us anything, I will talk about anything on here, but BJ, as you know, I don't know all the circumstances. I gave you my email earlier. It's joe@atsinc.com. I'll personally be glad to look into this. there's always a little bit more to the entire situation that happened. But without a doubt, if you address it on here, I'll personally follow up to make sure that you're getting a full answer. But I don't know enough about that situation. Okay, buddy? So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do here is we're a little bit over what we normally do. Again, a big thank you for both our active ATS drivers that have joined us, some of our employees that were, that have been on board helping us out getting these things so us old guys can get this funneled through. And for the drivers that are actually taking the time to do their research, there's nothing more critical than attending these, going out and looking at the reviews of ATS, go onto our Facebook site and ask our drivers questions. I've never been more proud. I've been here over 30 years for one reason. It's because I got the greatest group of drivers within the organization and the greatest staff of people to work with. Just second to none. So ask the questions. We'd rather have you take your time and make a good decision, because shocking number that I love is that our average tenure for our drivers is over 5 years across the board. So when drivers come here, we tend to keep them, and we want to keep them here a long time. So again, thanks for joining us for our ATS Live Ask Us Anything. We'll be back next
Thursday, 11 o'clock.
And when's the next Facebook evening?
Monday the 19th at 7 p.m. Or I'm sorry, Wednesday the 19th at 7 p.m.
Wednesday, yep. So again, you guys, even though it's over, keep the messages coming. We are monitoring this thing like a hawk. So ATS wants to say thanks for everything you guys do, and looking forward to the opportunity to chatting with you in the near future. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.